All right, and we're back for another episode of Inside Sports Fantasy Football. It's Gerald Glassford coming right back at you here from Inside Sports Fantasy Football, Pop Culture Cosmos, the Lakers Fast Break, and Game Source. We truly appreciate everyone out there listening to all of our great shows, and if you can, please give us that 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Plus, if you can like, share, subscribe, follow, or do whatever you can to support Inside Sports Fantasy Football, or my guests or my co-host shows as well. He's going to go ahead and give the big knockoff on as far as what he's doing on that show with his awesome son. So we're going to go ahead and talk about that here in a sec. But it is Chris Lardieri, and Chris, my main man, the fantasy man, Chris Lardieri. Chris, I cannot thank you enough for being back once again. Come on, what's up with your latest show? Got to go ahead. Fill us in.
Thank you. Domination Sports Nation. That's Dom-in-Nation. You can find us on Apple, Spotify, Google, Anchor, wherever you find your great podcasts. And back to doing the show once a week. We'll be taping another episode tomorrow night. My son Dom and I do the father-son thing, Gen X versus Gen Z, I guess, take on sports, and talking a lot of NFL. My son just finished watching the Heat Celtics game. I'm sure he'll have some good takes on that, and we try and throw in a fantasy football or even a Madden take or two during the show to keep the kids happy.
And I've been covering the NBA playoffs each and every game with my good friend Rafael Barlow from NBA Draft Junkies. That's on the Lakers Fast Break, wherever you get your podcast as well. My goodness, not the best weekend if you had a top running back or near the top of the draft this past weekend, because injuries galore. You knew it was going to happen sometime, and it happened this weekend in the NFL. My friend, will start off with the big news. 2 major injuries to 2 of the top 3 running backs, at least that was going into this year, and Saquon Barkley and also Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey got that dreaded high ankle sprain that could possibly have him out for a month and a half, maybe even 2 months, because sometimes those things don't heal right. So I want to hear your thoughts on Christian McCaffrey and how damaging that was before we even go into the major injury of the weekend.
Yeah, I think this is going to really hurt his fantasy owners. Someone who had Saquon Barkley last year with a similar ankle injury, and he was out. And even if he did play, I don't think he was 100% healthy. He's a gamer and all, but that's the key. McCaffrey may want to come back sooner than later, but will he be effective on that bum ankle? I think not. So if I'm a McCaffrey owner, I've got to be worried right now. I know a lot of people say, well, go get Mike Davis. I remember, I'm going to date myself here, Mike Davis was an outfielder with the Oakland A's back in the day.
Yes,
don't know much about his running back namesake, but I guess you got to take what you can get. So, in most leagues, those guys went 1-2. And if you can't get Davis, I think you've got other running backs that could be out there. But as we've said, even going into this season, there probably would be injuries, but I don't think anyone in fantasy land saw this coming this soon.
No, I didn't. And I didn't actually see the big injury most of all, and that was Saquon Barkley tearing that ACL. Was it ACL and PCL, or is it just the ACL?
Last I heard was ACL, but you know what? As a long-suffering Giants fan, as soon as I saw him clutching his knee and they suspected an ACL, that's about all I can read up on it, Gerald. It hits a little too close to home.
That it does, my friend. And unfortunately, as a Giants fan, it's not good news for you. And unfortunately, as someone who picked Saquon Barkley on his team of 4 quarterbacks, which right now is in desperate times for me, so to speak, because I need to fill up that roster with some depth, and I've got the trade markers out there for 3 of my quarterbacks. So I want to go ahead and ask you this now. I understand we tell people it's not the time to hit the panic button, but at least it's time to start taking some action.
Absolutely. To kind of give it the weather analogy, the storm is coming, so it's time to get those shutters put on your windows and tape up the windows. So definitely be proactive. And in your case, it's ironic. We talked about last week how you could use one of your solid QBs as trade bait. So you're ahead of the game. You've taken our own advice. I think too, if you've got a top running back that's gotten hurt, like a Barkley or McCaffrey, there's going to be slim pickings out there on waivers. The vultures will try and go and block. I mean, I've got Raheem Mostert in one league. We got lucky enough to get Jerick McKinnon. How about this, Gerald? An old school tactic. We've been playing fantasy close to 2 decades now. The handcuff. Remember when that happened? You'd get a star running back and you'd pick his backup in the 14th or 15th round and stash him on the bench. And now in new modern fantasy football world, people don't like that. Well, I'm going to say you need to do that. If you've got even an Austin Eckler, go get Joshua Kelly. He's not only is he getting touches, he could have some value for you maybe as a bye-week fill-in or something. But if Eckler goes down, you've got his starter and a guy is going to be more than a serviceable fantasy running back. So start looking now. So even if you've got a healthy running back, go find out who his backup is and snag him now, stash him on your bench. I don't care if you have to waste a spot. We're heading into week 3 of fantasy football, and we're already starting to hit the alarm bell, right?
I know I am. Hold on. Boo, boo. Yeah, I'm hitting it right now with all the certainty that I can because of the fact that he was my major anchor at the running back position. And when he goes down, I've won leagues before with a multitude of quarterbacks, either that I couldn't trade off during the course of the season, but I understand that it leaves me with little depth. But I've gambled before and it's paid off, and I've won leagues with this scenario before. But right now, I'm on the outside looking in because I need a way to go ahead and fill up my roster. You're right. I can tell you in the leagues that I'm in that it was slim pickings, and McKinnon's already gone like that. But I'm trying to fill it up as best I can. But I do have those trade markers out there and seeing if I can go ahead and cash in on that depth at quarterback I now have.
It's the wise move, and that's all you can do in your predicament. One thing I'd also throw out there, you look at teams, and the Rams have already embraced this. They've got a running back by committee of 3, and it looks like each week it's going to be a different guy, next man up. A name I'll throw out there, I have him in one league. I've been stashing him, is Cam Akers. He hurt his ribs. I don't think it's anything serious from what I've read and heard out here in LA. But who knows? Maybe in a week or 2, he's a flavor of the month in Sean McVay's rotation. So those are the type of guys you need to look for. And I'm saying this not as a Giants fan, but putting my fantasy hat back on. Devontae Freeman. I mean, he's frustrated me in the past. Yeah, but the Giants have committed a substantial amount of money to a guy who's going to be a fill-in running back this year. I really don't think they're just going to have him in a rotation with Wayne Gallman, who has improved himself even last year when Barkley got hurt, or Dion Lewis, who was really more of a pass catcher, third down back. So I think it's worth taking a flyer on someone like that. He may not be great, but if he's a number 1 running back, he's getting you touches. He'll get you a cheap touchdown here and there. It's better than having someone that's in a share situation.
You don't give him $3 million to come off the street and just be a backup.
Exactly. And, the Eagles were in on it too. And the Giants said, no, we want this guy. So they paid up.
Well, Rockout had a question for you, my friend. Kelly or Jared McKinnon for a flex full PPR?
This week, I would go with McKinnon. I know Kelly's getting the touches and the Panthers have a weak defense, but like I said, as a Giants fan, I think McKinnon's going to get the carries. The 49ers, they're kind of hiding out in West Virginia right now as opposed to making that cross-country trip to the Meadowlands 2 consecutive weeks. Even if Garoppolo's banged up, I just think they're going to run the ball down the Giants' throats. And let's not forget, McKinnon at one time was a nice fantasy running back. Not the greatest, but when he got his opportunities, he would score you some points. So I think he'll do well behind the combination of the 49ers O-line and the Giants defense. While improved, still not a quality squad on that side of the ball.
That's for sure, my friend. But that's a great question, Rockout. And again, I thank you so much for subscribing last time out. I truly appreciate you coming back to watch us right here at Inside Sports Fantasy Football. I want to ask you this, my friend, when it comes to what we're seeing in San Diego, I'm sorry. See, I said it again, like last year. Los Angeles Charger, the nice new fancy new stadium that they're playing in right now. Tyrod Taylor, man, I got a feel for the guy because I guess upon just an examination by the doctor, he got punctured, popped a lung. right in through the ribs, couldn't breathe, had to be taken to the hospital. Bobby Aber from Oregon, their first round draft pick. You're in the game, buddy. He couldn't even believe it, and he throws for 4 TDs and 300 yards. I understand he's not going to repeat that performance as much, at least in his first year, obviously as a rookie, but could this be a situation where you say maybe we should go ahead and throw the kid in there and see what we got?
I think it could. And after the game, I found it odd that Anthony Lynn said that Taylor is a starter. Well, now we know why. And let's back up a little bit. Even going back to the San Diego days, which you seem to fondly remember.
It's got stuck in my brain.
Yeah, I mean, how can you not? They were really a fixture down there. It's still
I
hard
could
for
be a
me.
lot more mean and say the Carson Chargers.
Yeah, even Chargers fans want to forget those days. But look, their medical staff, trainers, doctors, they've had issues with injuries in the past, and now this. I mean, the only thing I could think of, other than the unfortunate incompetence of the puncture into the lung by that doctor, is do you really think Justin Herbert pulled a Tanya Harding and had this arranged? I don't know. I shouldn't say that. That's a bad joke. But I could see why Lynn said Taylor is a starter, or there was kind of a liability issue there, I guess. You really can't blame him for getting a bad needle to the lung. But bigger picture, look, Herbert played really well for not knowing until minutes before the game that he was a starter, going up against the defending Super Bowl champs, and really playing well and showing some mobility too. I mean, I know he made one boneheaded throw he got picked on, but I say why not? It's kind of like that Lou Gehrig thing where Wally Pipp wasn't feeling well one day, and then the consecutive game streak began. I'm not saying Herbert is Lou Gehrig, but sometimes opportunity presents itself in strange ways. So I think it's worth, if you're in a league where quarterbacks are thin, pick up Herbert, stash him away. You're looking what's happening with Joe Burrow in Cincinnati. He's really been playing well. He threw 3 touchdowns on Thursday night against the Browns. Who's to say Herbert, who's got a lot of weapons with the Chargers, couldn't do the same down the road in the season?
I think Justin Herbert looked great, and I think the future is bright for him. I couldn't agree with you more. I just think that's going to be something that people are going to have to look at. And if you need a quarterback at the end of the bench, you're not in my league and you won't trade, I guess Justin Herbert is a great place to start, because I think by the end of the season that Tyrod Taylor, health or no health, is going to be sitting down. I think they're going to put Justin Herbert in the lineup.
I agree. When you take a pick that high on a quarterback that you believe in, you've got to let him play. You've got to let him get the reps. And frankly, I don't think he's that much of a downgrade from Tyrod Taylor. I think he brings an added dimension to that offense. And as someone who owns Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, I'd really like someone who could throw the ball a little more.
Well, hopefully the Los Angeles Chargers will hopefully get everything squared away. I mean, you obviously don't like to see that with Tyrod Taylor, but this could be the opening that the team sorely needs with Justin Herbert, and the future coming sooner rather than later. So looking forward to it. Rockhout had another question: Aaron Rodgers or Gardner Minshew? I told him, since I'm a big fan of Aaron Rodgers these past couple of years, I understand he wasn't he was extremely accurate last year, but he wasn't prolific in the number of touchdowns that he had. But my God, he have a gaudy TD into interception ratio last year. And this year he's doing even better, because I think he's just even more determined with who they drafted. I think that just gave him all the impetus in the world. So I'm going for Aaron Rodgers, but I know Gardner Minshew is proving a lot of people that maybe Jacksonville should look at another position outside of drafting just a quarterback.
Yeah, well, I would tend to agree with you with Rodgers. I don't think you can go wrong with either one this week. The fact that Jacksonville plays the Dolphins on Thursday night, I think that could benefit Minshew, if anything. We've seen this in the past where the play can be a little bit lackluster, and as we saw this past Thursday night, the points were aplenty as the defenses ran out of gas in the fourth quarter. So I think it's a toss-up, but I'm really impressed with what Minshew's done. doesn't have a heck of a lot of talent down there in Jacksonville, but he makes the most of it. I mean, if you ask me, Sharks really developed as a nice fantasy receiver, for instance, and we even had a Chris Thompson sighting at running back, right? So they may not be a good team, but for fantasy purposes, as we say, it's not the same as on the field performance, and the Jags got some nice options for those in fantasy world.
Absolutely. But I think Aaron Rodgers has a top 5 quarterback year left, on him. And I think this could be very well be the year that you see another top 5 quarterback, possibly even MVP quarterback performance from him. I understand right now that Russell Wilson and Kyler Murray and there's some other great quarterbacks right now getting most of the pub, but my gosh, Aaron Rodgers is not too far behind.
Absolutely not. And as a Devontae Adams owner, excuse me, I hope he's healthy, and I know Aaron Rodgers does for his sake too.
Absolutely. And I just want to say this, my friend, that's a great way to go. And keep those questions coming. Rock out anytime you need it. You can also hit up Chris at any point in time with your fantasy questions on Twitter at Chris L Sports. Anybody out there, if you have any questions, please hit him up with that. Or me, you can go ahead and hit up at Pop Culture Cosmo, or also as well, isfantasyfootball@yahoo.com, or there you go, Inside Sports FF on Twitter as well. But just want to go ahead and mention real quick, is there any games for this weekend? Because we obviously saw a lot of things going down in NFL Week 2 in regards to injuries for San Francisco. Do you see those translating to be a problem for fantasy owners in Week 3?
It's always a risk. And I think what really worried me is, the 49ers came out and complained about the turf at MetLife Stadium against the Jets. And I guess I had heard in passing there was I don't know if it was a former doctor or trainer that analyzed the key injuries, including McCaffrey and Barkley. And I think in all cases with those big name players that got hurt, they were to contact. So limited training camp, no preseason games, turf, whatever theory you want to throw out there. It was just one of those fluky weeks. I mean, you probably could throw in there these guys not having the reps might not help as much, but I mean, is that why Barkley is twisting his knee and tearing an ACL? I don't think so, but I think it's something to still be concerned about. We're only in Week 3. A lot of these guys aren't really in game shape, even in normal seasons when there are 4 preseason games and the starters aren't playing much. By the end of September, they're finally getting their feet under them. So I think it's always a risk. Be prepared with your bench and your waiver wire transactions and act accordingly. In terms of on the field games, I had mentioned even with the 49ers being limited going up against the Giants, I really don't expect the Giants to be able to stop San Francisco much this week, especially if Garoppolo plays. I think the New York Jets are emerging as the potential front runners in the tank for Trevor Lawrence sweepstakes this year. If you've got any fantasy players going up against them this week, it's the Colts. I think they're a start. Naseem Hines was a dud last week. I recommended him. I take full responsibility for that. But it looks like Jonathan Taylor is emerging as a starter in Indy. I think he should have a nice game against the Jets. And then 2, guy we stashed up in waivers after Week 1, Cam Newton had a phenomenal game against the Seahawks. Running, passing, and let's face it, Gerald, he doesn't have a heck of a lot of options. He's got some decent receivers, but not the talent around him like a Russell Wilson has. I think with the Raiders coming to town, that's a guy. Cam Newton's a guy that if you need a quarterback, I'd venture to say you should be starting him every week unless you've got someone like a Lamar, a Mahomes, someone like that who's like a superstar fantasy talent. I mean, Cam's easily a top 10 quarterback right now. You've got him, start him. I know the Raiders played well in their debut and their beautiful Death Star this past Monday night, but by no means do I think they're a defensive juggernaut, and Cam can definitely get you points throwing or running.
I said on the Journey with the Jays shows that I was on earlier today, and I said that the Death Star, it looked like they were sucking up with the tractor beam the New Orleans Saints, like the Death Star in Star Wars did for the Millennium Falcon, just like sucked them right up and just sucked them right into playing bad football. I think it was more of a case of New Orleans Saints playing down than the Las Vegas Raiders playing up.
Yeah, and we can't say the Saints are spending any time in the bars the night before the game because they weren't even open. So I guess your tractor beam theory would probably hold more water there.
There you go. Indeed. Once again, I'm on. Once again, I'm on with my good friend Chris Lardieri from Inside Sports. You got to go ahead and check out what he's doing today at Chris L Sports on Twitter. Our competition continues, my friend. The Pick'em Challenge that we'll go ahead and I'll stop by the Facebook page for Inside Sports this weekend on Saturday. I'll go ahead and I'll announce your picks and I'll announce mine. But after 2 weeks, the total is you're 5-1, and wouldn't you know, I'm 5-1 as well.
I'm glad we're out of the gate well with a nice record. It's a lot better than saying we're both 2-3. So, hey, I'll take it. Good job by you. I mean, when you have a 2-1 week and you lose ground, I mean, that's pretty impressive. Hoping here the odds makers still remain on our side and keep giving us some juicy lines that we think are easy for teams to cover. I went out on a limb, picked the Giants last week. They almost won that game outright, but if it weren't for the Bears missing a late field goal, I could have easily lost the cover on that, and you'd be up a game on me.
Well, there you go. But the luck was with you again, my friend. So we'll wait and see this weekend on Saturday for what's going to happen as far as our picks for the Pick'em Challenge on Saturday for Week 3 in the NFL. But before we head on out and before we head to woof, 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 the doghouse, want to go and hear your thoughts on fantasy matchups you're looking forward to, or you might want to give advice to people on for Week 3 in the NFL.
I'll tell you what, from a football fan perspective and a fantasy perspective, this Rams-Bills game should be interesting.
Very.
I think, we mentioned earlier the Rams have this kind of running back by committee. On the Bills side, Stephon Diggs emerged. Looks like he's already paying dividends in that big offseason trade with the Vikings. But
are you buying in on Josh Allen?
That's what I'm about to get to. Two much maligned quarterbacks over the past few years, Josh Allen and Jared Goff, they've quietly put up nice numbers. I mean, they're not lights out at this point, but they're progressing every week. I mean, we know Allen can run with the ball, but now he's doing more with his arm too. And I feel like too, he's got a nice running back rotation there. I happen to own Zach Moss in 2 leagues, so I think he's someone to keep your eye on there. But with the Rams making that cross-country trip, they decided to head back to LA this week and then come back east to Orchard Park. Not sure how that'll affect them or their defense. So we could potentially see some points scored here, as it looks like both offenses are really in sync. Goff looks like the Goff from the Super Bowl year, and I think Allen has so far eliminated the dumb mistakes like the infamous ones in the wild card game last year against the Houston Texans. So I think those are two quarterbacks that, like I said, you don't own an elite quarterback. I'd feel very comfortable about starting either of those guys this week, given how they've played and the fact that weather won't be a factor. I say give them both a go if you have to.
There you go. That's some really good advice. And that's probably the one place I would start as well. I mean, there are other good matchups here coming up this weekend, but I think for a lot of people right now, they need to go ahead and check that out as far as if they have any Rams or Bills players. But is there any one player you're spotlighting, or maybe a couple players that you're spotlighting for Week 3 in the NFL?
I'm going to give you a deep sleeper. We managed to get him in one league. Russell Gage from the Atlanta Falcons. And look,
I just picked him up.
Excellent work. So got to hand it to my son. He had kind of tipped me off to this, and we looked into it. And he's gotten, I want to say it's 21 or 22 targets in the first 2 weeks from Matt Ryan. And look, again, is football fantasy football? No. The Falcons, in my opinion, are a disgrace for blowing that lead, but am I surprised? No. Should Dan Quinn be fired? I don't know, but if Matt Ryan keeps throwing the ball, I want Russell Gage. Yeah, they've got Julio, they've got Calvin Ridley, but Gage is clearly emerging as the number 3 wide receiver. When you get that many targets, someone likes you, there's some sort of chemistry, and the offense is going your way. How about the fact that he missed out on a 46-yard touchdown bomb that he threw to Julio Jones, only to have Julio drop it? So this guy, too, who knows, down the road, he might even throw a touchdown for you. I haven't looked deep enough into his background to see if he was a QB in high school or college, but I like the versatility at the very least. So he's a guy, he's a wide receiver 3. I think you play. We're going to end up playing him this week, it looks like, and I think you continue that. Keeping with our earlier theme in the show, God forbid Jones or Ridley get banged up, this guy's going to get even more looks in the offense. This is the type of guy not only you can plug in as a starter, especially this week. I think he's got a favorable matchup, but down the road, stash him on your bench. You're going to need it come those middle weeks of the football season.
And with Atlanta going ahead and just going ahead and throwing the ball more than any other. Or are they second? I think they're either first or second in the league as far as attempts are concerned. So I'm telling you what, my friend, it's going to be very interesting to see what's going on with that and whether or not Dan Quinn will be fired. Because if Dan Quinn's fired, I have a feeling they're going to go totally. I don't say they're going to ditch the offense, but I think they're going to go into a different direction, more running, a little bit more conservative.
Yeah, hard to say. I mean, a lot of that's based on who the interim coach would be, but let's face it. Week 2, yeah, it was a bad loss. Strange things have happened, but I still think that's a little too early to pull the plug on a coach in the NFL, unless he gets some sort of meltdown or ends up on social media in a negative way. I don't see it happening right now. They go out the gate 0-4, 0-6, 0-8, then yeah, that's fair game, but not after 2 weeks.
Absolutely, indeed. Well, my friend, it's been great having you on so far, and I appreciate your input as always. And you've got some just awesome analysis once again right here at Inside Sports Fantasy Football. But before we head on out, we got to take that walk right over to woof, 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 right over to the doghouse.
Well, Gerald, you said I gave you excellent analysis. Full disclosure and fairness, I haven't given you excellent analysis with my doghouse picks the last 2 weeks. In my defense, and it's a hollow defense, I would have covered with the Patriots had Bill Belichick not decided to go for 2 way too early in the game, in my opinion, or they had a halfway decent play call in the last play of the game. I still told myself at the time they should roll Cam out. They're going to stuff him here if he tries to sneak it, and look what happened. But oh well, those are the breaks in gambling, right? I'm going to go back to Seattle for my doghouse pick this week. No, I'm not taking the Seahawks. They're laying 4.5 against the Dallas Cowboys, and just to show you my objectivity, Gerald, I'm not a Cowboys fan. You should know that by now, being a Giants fan. But I do feel the way the Cowboys performed in the second half of that comeback against the Falcons. Dak Prescott looks like he's the real deal fantasy-wise as a quarterback this year. I'm not going to give you any editorial commentary on how much he should get paid or what Jerry Jones should do with him next year, but I like what he's doing in the fantasy world.
I wonder who called that in the preseason.
I don't know. I've got selective amnesia. Someone on this show, but look, I wasn't that impressed with the Seahawks defense. You could talk all you want about Russell Wilson. He's playing phenomenal. Everyone wants to anoint him MVP out of week 2. But knowing a lot of the history of these two teams, when they face off, they tend to be close games regardless of where the game is played. The Seahawks not being able to stop Cam and limited wide receivers and not a heck of a lot of running back talent. What do you think Dak, Zeke, Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, Gallup are going to do against this secondary? Jamal Adams is a nice player, but he's only one guy back there. So I'll take the 4.5. I think at the very least, like I thought last week, it'll be a close game. If they end up losing by 4, you've got that extra half-point cushion. But frankly, I wouldn't be surprised if the Cowboys pull off the upset outright in a shootout is what I'm anticipating, but that remains to be seen.
I loved the internet sometimes, especially Twitter, when you go there and you see the memes of the great Samuel L. Jackson, one of my favorite actors in all of Hollywood, wearing the Falcons jersey and so happy and just so full of joy in the first half when it was 20-0. And then you see in the bottom half shouting or saying or thinking his line that he probably says better than anybody else, an expletive. It was 40-39 for the Dallas Cowboys. Oh my gosh. Feel so sorry for him because I just absolutely just love his work, and to see that happen to him. But I told you before that this was going to be a high octane Dallas offense, and I cannot believe that it took this long to really snap them out of it, because I really didn't see the type of offense I was planning to see in week 1. I'm just surprised that it took that to get them to go ahead and finally kick it gear in that second half.
Yeah, it's almost like, the test has already started. We better get our act together and finish it, right?
Unreal. But Dak Prescott is I think definitely someone that is, especially with all the assets that he has out there from the running back and wide receiver positions. My gosh, your numbers, whether or not he's a great quarterback or not, I can't tell you that. I mean, obviously, we have to see him perform at a high level, to see him in the playoffs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, a little bit more. But with the kind of assets that he has out there, both a wide receiver and a running back position and the tight end, he's got a lot going for him. So I think that it's really going to be something that we're going to be seeing down the road and seeing Cowboys at or near the top of the situation right there when it comes to what we're seeing with the Dallas Cowboys going forward. But we have one last question before we head on route. That's Adrock. No, he just has a quick question on the Haber situation. So here you go, Chris. For this weekend, would you start Josh Allen or Haber? And I would personally start Josh Allen because that's the safer pick, because you don't know for sure if Justin Haber is going to be able to be playing. Well, I think he's going to be starting. I'm not sure if Tyrod's ready to come back yet, so I'm thinking he's going to start, but still, the safer bet for me would be Josh Allen against the Rams.
I completely agree with you, and here's another reason why we've experienced this in teams in the past. The Bills play at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 Eastern. The Chargers are a late game, 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 Eastern. So you really don't have that flexibility before the game to say, all right, Herbert's starting, I'm going to play him. So even if we do know going into the game that Herbert's a starter, I just think Allen's more of the safer pick. I think it'll give you more consistency. We saw one really nice week out of Herbert, but let's face it, the Chiefs didn't game plan for him. And I think now Matt Rule and company down in Carolina will have a game plan for him should he be the starter.
I agree with you. I mean, now that there is some video on the kid, you're going to throw some things at him that he might not have seen before already practicing in the NFL. So on the safe side, I would probably go with Josh Allen. He's done a really nice job this year. And for a team that has pretty lofty expectations, I think that Josh Allen, if he goes ahead and continues his success so far, is going to be a solid pick. And like you said, could be right on the fringe of a top 10 NFL quarterback this season.
Yeah, a lot of experts got on his bandwagon before the season, and I don't think they're as crazy as they did at the time. But I saw him more as maybe a guy you stash if you need a good backup quarterback, and it looks like if you're really hurting, he's a good option at this point. The running always worries me too. If he gets drilled or whatever, there's always that concern. But then again, any quarterback can get hit at any time and anything can happen, right? I mean, we saw it happen with Mahomes on a QB sneak a couple of years ago.
Absolutely. So we'll be looking forward to seeing what happens. Although I do really think that I want to see that if for the Los Angeles Chargers, Justin Herbert, I want to see him get a chance, but I got to feel bad for Tyrod Taylor as well.
You really do. I mean, poor guy lost his job to Baker Mayfield in Cleveland, and now this. I mean, what more could go wrong?
Exactly, indeed. But my friend, it's been great talking to you again on another edition of Inside Sports Fantasy Football. Want to go ahead and give a big shout out to not only Rockout, but AdRock. If either of you guys ever want to stop by on the show and hop on the air with us, you're always welcome to. Just hit us up, isfantasyfootball@yahoo.com, or also as well at Inside Sports FF on Twitter. He is at Chris L Sports. If you have any fantasy football questions, or Chris Lardieri on LinkedIn. I know he's not the LinkedIn stalker. That joke is already gone. That was last week's joke.
Played out.
Exactly. It's already been played out. I might be a LinkedIn stalker. You never know. I'm just starting to get back into LinkedIn once again, start to advertise there. So you never know what happens. But AdRock says, thanks, Chris, for your great insight. As always, I'm telling you, it's just so blessed to have you here on another week. I'm looking forward to week 3 in the NFL, which obviously starts on Thursday, but we're going to go ahead and have our picks on Saturday. I'm going to go ahead by myself just for 10 minutes on Saturday and have a video up. So you want to check that out on our Pick'em Challenge. I'm looking forward to matching wits with you. Of course, if that's the case, I always lose out, but I will go ahead and that's another hour show in and of itself. But we're looking forward to seeing what's happened in week 3 of the NFL. I'm also looking forward to see if I can get any more running backs out there via trade. So if you're in my league, in the ESPN League, Indianapolis, I've got 4 great quarterbacks to trade. You guys need a quarterback out there. Come on, trade for him. I need some quality depth at running back now, because If you're not acting now, it's going to be a problem for you down the road, especially with Saquon Barkley or Christian McCaffrey being out of the lineup for quite some time. Well, my friend, it's been great talking to you. Thanks again, AdRock and Rock Out, for watching, and everybody else out there that's watching and listening to us right here at Inside Sports.